Have you ever thought about being a rock star? Well, I have. And one of the hardest parts about performing on stage in front of tons of people is being able to remember all of your songs and still put on a show. If you're interested or are a performing artist, this skill is key and will help you find much more success in your musical career. A performance where music is being played is enhanced by an unmeasurable amount when the performer has their music memorized and is able to show their passion with their body and the music being performed. The best three tools a musician has is practice, your scales and arpeggios, and your ear. The biggest part of practice is repetition. Practice is the most important part of learning something correctly and completely memorizing it. For example, the song Walk This Way, I've played it many times, and I'll just play a little bit of the beginning for you to show that how much I played it, and I can play it without music. And then the song Crying. Both of these songs are by Aerosmith, and this one I've played it a few times, but it's been a couple of years and I didn't put as much practice into it, so I don't have that in my long-term memory, and I have to use a piece of music to play it. According to Northern Michigan University, repetition is one of the most basic ways to learn something, and that really showed with those two pieces of music. The average person can hold 5 to 9 pieces of information in their short-term memory at one time, and that you need to take a few steps to move it into your long-term memory. Condensing the information, and when you condense stuff and group it together, the more information you can take in. And the more times this piece of information is brought through your brain, it'll eventually move into your long-term memory. According to the Wall Street Journal, many researchers of the brain and memorization believe that humans responded to music before they responded to language. And researcher Henry L. Roedinger III believes that the melody of a song encourages repetition, and that leads to the actual repetition itself. Practicing is your best building block for learning everything in life, especially music. But what comes next? Your scales and arpeggios. These are one thing every musician needs to know so that they have ease memorizing and improvising. It is common knowledge, ask any musician or music teacher, that scales and arpeggios are incredibly helpful in developing movement around your instrument and an easier time learning songs. Almost all music is built on a recognizable scale, whether it be the chromatic scale, C minor, B-flat blues, or a variant like Mixolydian or Dorian. These scales are known to help you spend less time on a new piece of music you have been presented. Scales and arpeggios are super important, but so is your ear, the musician's best friend. Your ear is what you use to hear the music, and when you hear the music, most of the time you're making mistakes, and your ear allows you to minimize those mistakes and correct them, and lead you to a better memorized product. The Wall Street Journal says without our ear and the way our brain works, we might not respond the same way to music, and that distinction separates us from animals. The ear, along with other senses, lets you help gauge how your audience is responding to your music. Whether you need to be louder, softer, go dance around the stage a little more, or interact with your other musicians. How do all these things come together and help you memorize and then perform? Well, practice helps you iron out the mistakes. Scales help you minimize your mistakes in your individual pieces of music, and it reduces the time you need to learn the music. And finally, your ear helps you make changes on the spot and recognize your mistakes so practice and scales can fix them. As musicians, prepare yourself by making sure you do these things. I could go much deeper, but then you probably have to start paying me for music lessons. If you use these tools, you will learn to be much more comfortable when performing. Practice makes permanent. Don't practice the wrong thing. Make sure you use your scales and arpeggios in your ears to make sure of that. Rock on.